You might be holding a coin that at first glance seems ordinary. A 2000 Lincoln penny. No mint mark. But don't scroll past just yet, because some verified examples of this coin have quietly sold for prices far above what most collectors expect. And while it won't make every owner instantly wealthy, for the right examples, the financial potential can be surprisingly significant. This coin comes from a fascinating era. The year 2000 marked the turn of a new millennium, but in the world of U.S. coinage, pennies were already well into a long line of steady production. The Lincoln penny, first minted in 1909, had become one of the most recognizable coins in America. By 2000, billions had been struck, yet even in such high numbers, small variations can capture the attention of dedicated collectors. Here's where many people get confused. The no mint mark designation. For U.S. pennies, the mint mark tells you where the coin was struck: Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. A 2000 penny with no mint mark indicates it came from Philadelphia. That might seem ordinary, but when you start looking at condition, die varieties, and subtle errors, that ordinary coin can quietly become a candidate for a life-changing sale. Collectors and buyers still focus on this date for several reasons. First, it's part of the transitional period between copper-plated zinc coins and older, mostly copper pennies. The 2000 pennies were mostly zinc with a thin copper coating, but a few early strike coins, misstrikes, or unusual planchet anomalies can stand out dramatically. This difference can completely change interest from casual coin enthusiasts to serious collectors. Let's talk composition and variety. Standard 2000 pennies are 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper, but coins struck on defective planchets, with double dies, or with off-center strikes sometimes surface. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Even slight differences in thickness, color, or rim shape can elevate a coin from a standard pocket change item to a collectible that commands hundreds or even thousands of dollars if certified. Common examples of this penny in circulation often sell for mere cents, sometimes just face value. But high-grade, uncirculated examples can quietly sell for hundreds, depending on condition and rarity. And for certified coins, particularly those graded by recognized services, the story becomes even more compelling. There are verified cases where exceptional coins from this year have been sold in the mid-four-figure range, highlighting the hidden financial potential that many owners never consider. Many owners make the same mistakes without realizing it. They store their pennies loosely, clean them aggressively, or simply overlook them in jars and drawers. Cleaning a coin, for example, can immediately reduce its numismatic value. This is where patient sellers sometimes discover unexpected income, simply by having a sharp eye and letting time work in their favor. The market today is nuanced. Collectors prioritize coins with flawless surfaces, sharp details, and authentic minting characteristics. It's less about rarity in numbers and more about rarity in quality and condition. Coins that show unusual die marks, luster, or even slight off-center striking often attract the most attention. And because these coins are relatively modern, they've often been overlooked in estates, collections, and family keepsakes, making quiet wealth discovery possible for those who carefully check what they already own. This is where many people get confused again. Not every shiny coin is valuable. Even some pristine-looking pennies may have minor imperfections invisible to the untrained eye, affecting their market value. That's why serious collectors use magnification, grading guides, and reference databases to identify the small differences that separate everyday coins from those with life-changing sale results for select examples. So what does that mean for you as a viewer? First, take a careful look at your own pennies from 2000. Examine them closely for luster, strike quality, and any unusual features. You might be surprised at what you find. Second, consider consulting coin guides, grading resources, or professional appraisers before making decisions. Knowledge and patience almost always matter more than speed when it comes to uncovering hidden value. And finally, if you're curious about other pennies that have quietly sold for extraordinary prices, make sure to check out our next video. We explore coins from nearby years and rare mint marks that collectors watch closely. Coins that, like the 2000 no mint mark penny, could hold financial potential for those who know what to look for. Remember, the thrill of coin collecting isn't just in the sale, it's in the discovery. Every drawer, every jar, every change you've saved over the years could contain an unexpected story, an overlooked detail. And yes, a coin that quietly holds value beyond face. Take your time, check carefully, and let your collection surprise you. You might be holding a coin in your pocket, a coin you've glanced at 100 times before. But today, one specific penny could quietly hold financial potential that surprises even seasoned collectors. The 1995 Lincoln penny isn't just a coin from your change. Some verified examples have sold for prices that make people sit up and take notice. While it's far from a guarantee for anyone, the stories of select collectors turning a simple copper disc into a life-changing sale result are real. And today, we're going to explore why. First, let's take a step back and look at the era. The 1995 Lincoln penny comes from a period of U.S. coinage where the mint was producing millions of pennies each year, with the Denver Mint handling a huge portion of that output. This was a time when collectors were paying attention not just to dates, but to subtle differences in mint marks, compositions, and even minor production anomalies. While most 1995 pennies might look ordinary at first glance, certain examples quietly stand apart, and this difference can completely change interest among collectors. So what makes this coin special in the eyes of the market? The D mint mark, placed just below the date, signals that the penny was struck in Denver. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Pennies from this year show variations in the placement and depth of the mint mark, as well as subtle differences in the strike of the coin itself. High-grade examples, especially those with sharp details on Lincoln's bust and the wheat reverse, or in this case, the modern shield design, can fetch significantly higher values than circulated coins. Now, here's where many people get confused. Just because a penny looks shiny or feels heavy doesn't automatically mean it's valuable. Condition matters more than most realize. Collectors focus on things like uncirculated surfaces, luster, and the sharpness of the design. Even minor scratches or wear can drastically reduce interest. That's why certified examples, graded by professional services, tend to command the highest prices. And while we're talking numbers, let's keep it realistic. Circulated 1995 pennies typically fall in the cents to a few dollars range, but certain certified examples, or those with extremely rare varieties, can quietly rise to hundreds or even thousands, depending on market demand. Another aspect worth noting is the coin's composition. By 1995, Lincoln pennies were already mostly zinc with a thin copper coating. This isn't necessarily exciting in itself, but it matters when evaluating anomalies. Some rare errors involve off-center strikes, doubled dies, or missing elements in the design, tiny quirks that can quietly change a coin's perceived value. This is where many casual collectors miss potential. Inspecting your coin under proper lighting or magnification can reveal details that significantly shift interest. Collectors also keep an eye on common mistakes that reduce value. Cleaning a penny, for instance, even with the gentlest methods, can eliminate surface luster and sharply reduce appeal to buyers. Scratches, bends, or improper storage can also mask hidden financial potential. Conversely, patience often pays. Many people stumble upon a coin in a drawer or jar that had quietly appreciated without them realizing it. Life-changing sale results for select examples don't always require a lucky find at the mint. They can come from simply knowing what to look for and letting the coin sit until the right opportunity arises. Here's another point that surprises people: subtle differences in strike quality. Not every 1995D penny is struck with the same pressure or precision. A slightly stronger strike might show more detail in Lincoln's coat and facial features, and collectors are watching closely for that. Even small differences like this can quietly elevate a coin from common to collectible. In some cases, these are the coins that quietly attract competitive bidding and long-term interest. As we explore this further, it's worth mentioning the psychological side. Many sellers rush to list coins online without understanding market nuances, and that can mean leaving value on the table. By contrast, patient collectors who carefully check grading standards, track past auction results, and understand what makes certain 1995D pennies rare are often the ones who discover unexpected income. Quiet wealth discovery is rarely about speed. It's about knowledge, timing, and careful evaluation. Let's also address varieties. Certain 1995D pennies show double die obverse or minor planchet flaws. These are not just mistakes, they are opportunities that experienced collectors monitor closely. While most pennies from this year are standard, the rare varieties quietly spark interest and can climb in value over time, especially when certified. If you think about it, each subtle variation tells a story that can turn a coin sitting in a jar into a piece worth watching for serious collectors. And here's a detail that's easy to overlook: provenance. Coins with well-documented history, especially those preserved in original rolls or from known collections, often outperform similar-looking examples on the market. This is where many people underestimate the importance of context. It's not just about the coin in front of you, it's about its story, its rarity, and the details collectors quietly treasure. Before we wrap up, let's return to the most important point: careful inspection. Take a close look at your own 1995D pennies. Examine the mint mark, the strike, the luster, and the edges. Compare them to verified auction examples and professional grading standards. Even if you don't own a rare variety, understanding the differences builds knowledge that pays off in future discoveries. Remember, it's not about rushing to sell. It's about knowing what you have, being patient, and letting opportunities arise naturally. Finally, if this peek into the 1995D Lincoln penny has sparked your curiosity, consider exploring related pennies from nearby years. Patterns emerge, rare varieties surface, and each coin has its story and hidden financial potential. Knowledge and patience, more than speed or luck, are what truly matter in the world of collectible pennies. Take the time to check your coins, learn their history, and you might be surprised at what quietly waits in your change. If you want, I can also create a slightly more cinematic, suspense-driven version of this script that stretches naturally to a full 9-minute watch, with every 60-90 seconds retention hook baked in for maximum watch time and engagement. It would feel like a mini-documentary audio experience. Do you want me to do that next? Have you ever held a penny in your hand and wondered if it might be worth more than just 1 cent? Today, we're diving into a coin that has quietly caught the attention of collectors across the country: the 1994 Abraham Lincoln penny, specifically the versions without a mint mark. What makes this seemingly ordinary coin a potential, quiet wealth discovery is subtle, but some verified examples have changed hands for remarkable sums. This is where many people get confused. Most pennies from the 1990s were produced in vast quantities, and yet, certain details can completely transform interest in a single coin. Understanding these differences is what separates a typical collector's find from something with hidden financial potential. Let's start with the basics. The 1994 Lincoln cent belongs to the familiar Lincoln Memorial series, which had been minted for decades. These coins were primarily made from a copper-plated zinc composition, a shift from the earlier 95% copper pennies. The 1994 issue includes coins minted in Philadelphia and Denver, but the no-mint mark version, produced in Philadelphia, is the one that collectors quietly watch. So why does a coin that's over 25 years old still attract attention? First, production errors or subtle variations can make a common penny uncommon. Coins that appear ordinary at first glance may carry slight differences in die strikes, planchet anomalies, or doubled features. This difference can completely change interest for serious buyers. Another factor is condition. Many 1994 no-mint mark pennies are found in circulated condition, showing wear and tear from decades of use. But even in circulated grades, certain examples can fetch a surprising amount. When a coin is preserved in pristine, certified condition, it becomes a prime candidate for what collectors call life-changing sale results for select examples. These high-grade coins are rare because most pennies are simply used for transactions and never kept. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: the clarity of the date, the sharpness of Lincoln's features, and the uniformity of the copper plating. Minor scratches or discoloration can reduce value significantly, which is why so many owners unknowingly hold coins that could be worth more if preserved correctly. Mistakes like cleaning coins aggressively or storing them improperly can erase potential value before it's ever recognized. It's also important to understand market trends. While most 1994 pennies without a mint mark sell for a modest few dollars in circulated condition, certified examples in exceptional grades have achieved prices that surprise even seasoned collectors. The quiet financial potential of such coins isn't always obvious at first glance, but patient sellers have sometimes discovered unexpected income just by having their coins properly graded and verified. Collectors also watch for varieties. Some 1994 no-mint mark pennies show subtle doubling on the date or the inscriptions, a feature known as a doubled die. These anomalies are rare and highly sought after. This is where many people get confused. Not every penny with a slight difference is valuable, but knowing exactly what to look for can make a huge difference. Another point that often surprises owners: coins from the 1990s, while modern, can be just as collectible as coins from the 1950s or earlier if they're in exceptional condition or have a recognized variety. The rarity is not always about age. It's about scarcity in a specific condition or with a specific era. Let's talk about realistic value ranges. A typical circulated 1994 no-mint mark penny might sell for just $1 or $2 to casual collectors. But certified, high-grade examples can reach into the hundreds, sometimes more if an unusual variety is present. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Even tiny differences in strike quality or planchet texture can increase interest dramatically. The key takeaway is patience and knowledge. Rushing to sell without proper research often leads to missed opportunities. Many owners assume their coins are worth face value and overlook the life-changing sale results possible for select examples. Waiting for the right market conditions, consulting reputable grading services, and understanding what makes certain coins stand out can reveal hidden financial potential. As we wrap up, take a careful look at your own pennies. You might be holding something more valuable than you realize, especially if it's a 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln cent in excellent condition or with a known variety. And if this peek into one coin has sparked your curiosity, there are plenty of other Lincoln pennies with stories and potential waiting to be explored. Remember, in coin collecting, knowledge and patience are far more important than speed. So the next time you pick up a penny from your change, look closely. It might be more than just a coin. It could be a doorway to an unexpected discovery. And if you want to continue exploring, check out our next video on rare Lincoln pennies from the 1990s. Your collection might surprise you, and your patience could pay off in ways you never imagined. If you've ever dumped a handful of pennies onto a table and glanced at the dates without really thinking twice, this might be one of the moments you wish you'd looked closer. Because today's coin, the 1979 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, is one of those ordinary-looking cents that has quietly surprised collectors, dealers, and everyday owners over the years. And while most examples are worth just a cent or two, A very small number of verified pieces have sold for prices that made people stop, double-check the coin, and rethink everything they thought they knew about modern pennies. Not promises, not hype, just real market behavior, and a date that continues to attract serious attention when the right details line up. And here's what makes this especially interesting. Many of the people who discovered these higher value examples didn't find them in auctions or coin shops. They found them in their own change. Now let's take a closer look at why this specific penny still matters, and what separates common pocket change from the versions collectors quietly compete for. The 1979 Lincoln cent was struck during a time when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies each year. Inflation was rising, metal costs were changing, and the 1-cent coin was still essential for everyday transactions. Most Americans used these coins without thinking twice, and that's exactly why so many survived in circulation. But this is where many people get confused. Not all 1979 pennies were made the same way, and not all of them carry the same collector interest today. When a penny has no mint mark under the date, that means it was struck in Philadelphia. In 1979 alone, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 7 billion cents. That massive number explains why most examples are extremely common, and why most are worth only face value in circulated condition. But collectors don't focus only on how many were made. They focus on how many survived in exceptional condition, and whether anything unusual happened during the striking process. And this difference can completely change interest. Let's talk about composition first, because this year sits at an important point in penny history. In 1979, pennies were still made primarily of copper, about 95% copper, with a small amount of zinc. Just a few years later, in 1982, the mint would switch to copper-plated zinc to save costs. That means 1979 cents belong to the final era of traditional copper Lincoln pennies, which already makes them more appealing to collectors than many newer issues. But copper alone doesn't create value. Condition does. And this is where many people get confused. Two coins with the same date and mint mark can sell for dramatically different prices, not because one is rarer, but because one is preserved far better than the other. Most 1979 no mint mark pennies you'll find today show wear. The edges are dull, Lincoln's coat blends into the background, and the fields have scratches or discoloration. Those are considered circulated coins, and in most cases, they're worth about 1 cent, maybe 2 or 3 if copper prices rise. But when collectors see a 1979 Philadelphia penny that looks nearly flawless, sharp details, full luster, no visible wear, no stains, interest changes immediately. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: high-grade examples, especially those graded by professional services, become dramatically scarcer at the top levels. Even though billions were made, very few survived untouched enough to qualify as top-tier mint state coins decades later. And this difference can completely change interest. Certified examples graded MS67 or higher have sold for prices that surprise many people, sometimes reaching into the hundreds of dollars, and in rare cases, much more when the eye appeal is exceptional and demand is strong. Not because the coin is rare in general, but because flawless survivors are rare. Now let's go deeper, because condition isn't the only factor. Varieties and minting errors also play a quiet role in value, and this is where many people overlook important details. Some 1979 Lincoln cents show doubling in the lettering or date. Others show off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or unusual die cracks. While not every error adds major value, certain verified varieties can increase collector interest significantly, especially when combined with strong condition. But here's the key: not every doubled-looking letter is valuable. Machine doubling, which looks flat and shelf-like, is extremely common and usually adds no premium. True doubled dies, on the other hand, show rounded, separated doubling and come from a flawed die, and those are the varieties collectors care about. This is where many people get confused. They see something that looks unusual, assume it's rare, and either damage the coin trying to clean it, or sell it too quickly without verification. And cleaning is one of the biggest mistakes penny owners make. A cleaned coin almost always loses collector value, even if it looks shiny. Collectors want original surfaces, natural toning, and untouched luster. Polishing a coin, soaking it in chemicals, or scrubbing it with cloth can instantly turn a potentially valuable example into one worth face value. This difference can completely change interest. Now let's talk realistic numbers because credibility matters. Most circulated 1979 no mint mark pennies are worth 1 cent. In better uncirculated condition, they may sell for a few dollars. Higher mint state examples, especially certified ones, can reach tens or hundreds of dollars depending on grade and eye appeal. And in rare cases, elite condition examples or confirmed varieties have produced life-changing sale results for select examples, not because of luck, but because of patience, verification, and timing. Not everyone finds one, but some people do. And that's what creates quiet wealth discovery in everyday places, not jackpots, but overlooked details that compound over time. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch strike quality. Some 1979 cents were struck with softer details, while others show crisp hairlines on Lincoln, strong lettering in Liberty, and full separation in the wheat stalks on the reverse or memorial columns, depending on die state. Coins with sharper strikes often receive higher grades, and higher grades mean stronger demand. This difference can completely change interest. Another overlooked factor is storage. Coins that were rolled and stored away decades ago, untouched, dry, and protected, often survive in far better condition than coins that circulated in pockets, jars, or drawers. Many higher-grade examples discovered today come from old rolls, estates, or forgotten collections rather than everyday change. And this is where patience plays a role. Some sellers list coins immediately at low prices because they assume modern pennies can't be valuable. Others take time to research, compare auction records, and consult professionals, and occasionally uncover hidden financial potential in coins they nearly spent. Not guaranteed, not common, but possible and proven by real market results. This is where many people get confused. They assume value comes from age alone, but age doesn't create value. Scarcity in high condition does. Demand does. Verification does. And sometimes timing does. Let's talk about another mistake owners make, ignoring the reverse side. Many people focus only on the date and mint mark, but collectors examine the entire coin. Rim damage, corrosion spots, fingerprints, or edge nicks can drop a grade dramatically, even if the front looks clean. That's why handling coins by the edges and storing them in protective holders matters more than most people realize. This difference can completely change interest. Another overlooked issue is counterfeit assumptions. But with pennies, the bigger risk isn't fake coins, it's false rarity claims. Online listings often exaggerate values without verified sales or certified grades. Serious collectors rely on auction results, professional grading, and consistent market behavior, not headlines. And here's where realistic expectations matter most. Most 1979 no mint mark pennies will never sell for more than face value. But some, through condition, variety, or preservation, have generated quiet, meaningful returns for patient owners who took the time to verify what they had before dismissing it. That's what makes this coin fascinating. Not because it's rare in general, but because it hides value in plain sight. And this difference can completely change interest. Now imagine this: a coin sitting unnoticed in a drawer for decades. No one thinks twice about it. Then one day, someone checks the date, the mint mark, the condition, and realizes it qualifies for professional grading. Weeks later, it returns sealed in a slab, authenticated, preserved, and suddenly, what was once spare change becomes a tangible asset with real market demand. Not hype, not fantasy, just how collectibles markets actually work. This is where knowledge beats luck, and patience beats speed, because rushed selling often destroys potential while careful evaluation preserves opportunity. So if you own 1979 Lincoln cents, especially those without mint marks, here's what matters most. Check condition carefully under good lighting. Look for sharp details, original luster, and clean surfaces. Avoid cleaning. Compare against verified examples, not social media claims. And if something looks exceptional, consider professional evaluation. That's how hidden financial potential is quietly uncovered, not through shortcuts, but through informed attention. And here's the most important part. Even when a coin turns out to be common, knowledge still wins. Because once you know what to look for, you never look at pocket change the same way again. And sometimes, just sometimes, that awareness leads to life-changing sale results for select examples. Not because everyone wins, but because a few people notice what others miss. So after this video, take a moment to check your own pennies, especially those from the late 1970s and early 1980s. You might not find anything extraordinary, but you might. And either way, you'll know more than you did before. And that's how collectors build quiet wealth over time. If you'd like to continue learning about overlooked Lincoln cents that have surprised owners in the past, watch the next video in this series. Because another date sitting in jars and drawers right now has quietly produced results that few people expected. And remember, in coin collecting, knowledge and patience always outperform speed. And sometimes, the smallest coins carry the biggest stories. Most people glance at a penny and think it's worth exactly 1 cent. But every once in a while, a completely ordinary-looking coin turns out to have a story that surprises even experienced collectors. And today's coin, the 1961 Lincoln penny with the D mint mark, is one of those dates that quietly shows up in collections, jars, and old drawers, and in select cases, has sold for prices that catch people completely off guard. Some verified examples of this coin have brought unusually strong results at auction, not because everyone is rare, far from it, but because a small number of special examples exist that collectors aggressively compete for. And the difference between a common one and a high-value one can come down to details most people never think to check. This is where many people get confused, and where hidden financial potential sometimes lives. So let's slow down, take a closer look, and uncover what really makes the 1961 D Lincoln penny worth paying attention to, and why patient owners sometimes experience quiet wealth discovery from coins they already own. The year 1961 sits in an interesting place in American coin history. The country was deep into the post-war boom. The space race was accelerating, and the Lincoln cent had already become one of the most widely collected coins in the world. By this point, pennies were still made from 95% copper, giving them that warm reddish tone collectors still love today. The D mint mark tells us this coin was struck in Denver, one of the most productive U.S. mint facilities in the country. In 1961 alone, the Denver Mint produced over 757 million pennies. That massive number is the reason most examples are still worth face value in everyday condition. But this is where many people get confused, because high mintage does not mean high-grade coins survived. Coins were made to circulate, not to sit in collections. Most 1961 D pennies were used in cash registers, vending machines, and pockets for decades. They picked up scratches, worn edges, and surface marks. And that means truly sharp, untouched examples are far scarcer than most people realize. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Condition changes everything. Two coins with the same date, same mint mark, and same metal content can be separated by thousands of dollars, simply based on preservation. A heavily circulated 1961 D penny might be worth 1 to 3 cents, but a sharply struck, blazing red example that never entered circulation can sell for dramatically more, especially if it earns a high professional grade. and that difference can completely change interest. Certified mint state examples graded MS65, MS66, or higher are where collector competition really starts to appear. Some of the finest known examples, especially those graded MS67 red, have sold for four figures at major auctions. These are not everyday coins. These are exceptional survivors that spent decades protected in original rolls or collections, untouched by circulation. This is where many people get confused, because the coin looks ordinary at first glance. But under magnification, experienced collectors look for sharp Lincoln hair detail, clean fields without marks, bold wheat lines on the reverse, and full red copper color. Those qualities separate common sense from premium examples. Now let's talk about varieties, because this is where hidden financial potential sometimes enters the picture. The 1961 penny is known for subtle die varieties, including repunched mint marks and minor double die characteristics. These are not always dramatic enough to spot without magnification, which means some people unknowingly spend coins that specialists would flag for closer inspection. This is a detail collectors quietly watch. Alignment of the mint mark, doubling in the date or lettering, and unusual spacing or shapes in Lincoln's portrait. These traits don't appear on most coins, but when they do, they can significantly increase interest and value, especially if the coin is in strong condition. And this difference can completely change interest, because collectors often compete more aggressively for error coins than standard issues, even when the base date itself is common. Another factor that makes the 1961 penny quietly fascinating is its copper composition. Unlike modern zinc pennies, these coins contain nearly a cent's worth of copper on their own, and during periods of rising metal prices, collector interest often increases. But more importantly, copper pennies from this era have developed a strong following because of their visual appeal and long-term collectability. This is where many people get confused, because they assume only rare dates matter. But condition rarities can be just as powerful, and sometimes even more valuable, than low-mintage coins. Let's talk realistic value ranges so expectations stay grounded. Most circulated 1961 pennies, those with brown surfaces, worn details, or visible marks, typically sell for 1 to 5 cents each, sometimes a little more in bulk copper lots. Lightly circulated examples with better detail might reach 10 to 20 cents. Uncirculated examples start getting more interesting. Coins graded MS63 or MS64 can sell anywhere from a few dollars to several dollars depending on eye appeal. MS65 red examples often trade in the tens of dollars range. MS66 red examples can move into the low hundreds, and select MS67 red examples, the finest known survivors, have achieved four-figure results at auction when collector demand is high. These are not common outcomes, but they are documented and verified sales. And they're exactly why this date continues to attract quiet attention. This is where many people get confused, because the gap between common and exceptional is enormous, yet invisible without careful inspection. Now let's talk about the mistakes that quietly destroy value, often without people realizing it. The most common mistake is cleaning. Scrubbing a penny with metal polish, baking soda, vinegar, or even a cloth can permanently damage its surface. Even if the coin looks shinier afterward, collectors can immediately spot cleaned surfaces, and cleaned coins almost always lose significant value. Another mistake is improper storage. Storing copper pennies in humid environments, plastic bags, or PVC-containing holders can cause discoloration, spotting, or corrosion. Once the original surface is compromised, collector interest drops sharply, and this difference can completely change interest, because surface originality is one of the most valuable traits in copper coinage. Another overlooked mistake is assuming that all uncirculated coins are equal. Many people keep shiny pennies thinking they're special, But even small contact marks or dull surfaces can reduce a coin's grade by multiple points, and each grade point can dramatically change value at higher levels. This is a detail collectors quietly watch. Luster. Not just shine, but flowing mint luster that moves across the surface when the coin tilts under light. That's one of the strongest indicators of originality and premium quality. Now let's talk about something even more interesting: patience. Many high-grade 1961 pennies weren't discovered immediately. Some sat in sealed bank rolls for decades. Others lived in inherited collections that weren't opened until years later. And some were found accidentally in estate cleanouts or old safety deposit boxes. This is where quiet wealth discovery happens, not through hype or rushing, but through slow, careful evaluation and preservation. Owners who take time to examine their coins under proper lighting, compare examples, and consult professional grading services sometimes uncover coins worth far more than expected. And while most examples will never reach headline prices, select coins absolutely can, which is why this date continues to draw steady collector attention year after year. This is where many people get confused, because they assume value comes from rarity alone. In reality, value comes from demand, condition, originality, and timing, all working together. Another detail collectors quietly watch is color designation. Copper pennies are graded not just by condition, but by color: red, red-brown, and brown. A coin that retains its original red mint color can sell for several times more than the same coin in brown condition, even at identical numerical grades. And this difference can completely change interest, especially when collectors are building top-ranked registry sets, where every grade point and color designation matters. Now let's talk about how people sometimes miss opportunities without realizing it. Some owners dismiss rolls of older pennies without checking them carefully. Others sell collections in bulk without separating higher-grade coins. And some never realize that professional grading exists, or that certification alone can multiply a coin's liquidity and market trust. This is where many people get confused, because raw coins and certified coins operate in very different markets. A certified example carries third-party verification of grade and authenticity, which opens the door to stronger buyer confidence and higher realized prices. And that's where hidden financial potential sometimes lives, not in the coin itself, but in how it's evaluated, preserved, and presented. Let's also address something important. Not every 1961 penny is valuable, and that's okay. But understanding why some are valuable changes how people view every coin they own. It turns loose change into historical artifacts. And in select cases, it turns forgotten pennies into surprising financial outcomes. That's why collectors continue to study even high mintage dates like this one, because condition rarity and variety scarcity don't always show up on mintage charts. This is where many people get confused, because rarity isn't always about how many were made, it's about how many survived in exceptional condition. And that difference can completely change interest. So if you're checking your own 1961 pennies, here's what to look for without tools or jargon. First, check the mint mark under the date. Look for a small D, then examine Lincoln's face and hair. Are the lines sharp or blurry? Look at the fields, are they clean or scratched? Tilt the coin under light, does it glow evenly or look dull? Next, look at the color. Is it bright red, reddish-brown, or dark brown? And finally, check the surfaces closely for doubling in the date or lettering, or unusual mint mark shapes, signs of potential varieties. This is a detail collectors quietly watch, and one that can completely change interest if something unusual appears. Now here's something most people never hear. Sometimes the most valuable coins don't look flashy. Some of the highest auction results came from coins that looked normal at first glance, but graded exceptionally well under professional evaluation. This is where quiet wealth discovery becomes possible, not because someone chased hype, but because they took time to learn what quality actually looks like. And that's why patience matters more than speed in coin collecting. Before we wrap up, remember this. The 1961D Lincoln penny isn't rare in general, but exceptional examples absolutely are. And those exceptional examples have produced life-changing sale results for select owners over time, especially when discovered in pristine condition or rare variety form. That doesn't mean everyone will strike gold, but it does mean that knowledge turns ordinary coins into informed opportunities, and informed opportunities into better outcomes. So if you have old pennies at home, take a few minutes and check them carefully. You might not find anything special, but sometimes, hidden financial potential lives quietly in places no one thought to look. And if you want to learn about another penny date that surprised collectors with unexpected results, make sure to watch the next video, because some of the most fascinating stories in American coinage come from the coins people overlook the most. Thanks for watching, and remember, in collecting, patience beats guessing every time. Most people never look twice at a 1957 penny. It sits quietly in jars, drawers, and old collections, often dismissed as just another common Lincoln cent. But here's what few people realize. Some verified examples of the 1957 no-mint mark Lincoln penny have sold for prices that surprised even experienced collectors. Not because everyone is rare, far from it, but because a small number of special examples stand out in ways most owners never notice. And that's what makes this coin so fascinating. Because sometimes, hidden financial potential isn't about luck. It's about knowing exactly what to look for and what not to miss. Stay with me, because near the end of this video, I'll share the specific details that quietly separate ordinary pennies from ones that attract serious buyer interest. Now let's go back to where this coin came from. The 1957 Lincoln penny was struck during one of the most productive eras in U.S. mint history. America was booming after World War II. Coins were needed everywhere, in banks, stores, vending machines, and households across the country. That year alone, hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents were produced, most at the Philadelphia Mint, which used no mint mark at the time. This is where many people get confused, because when a penny has no mint mark, some assume it means rare. But in 1957, no mint mark actually means it was struck in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia produced more Lincoln cents than any other mint that year. So most 1957 no mint mark pennies are common. But common does not mean worthless, and it definitely does not mean uninteresting. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. While the majority of these coins circulated heavily and show wear, a small percentage survived in exceptional condition, untouched by circulation, scratches, or surface damage. These high-grade examples behave very differently in the market than ordinary coins, even though they share the same date and design. And that difference can completely change interest. The 1957 Lincoln penny is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. The classic bronze composition used for decades before the metal changes of the 1980s. It weighs about 3.11 grams and features Abraham Lincoln on the front and the familiar wheat ears on the back, which is why collectors call these wheat cents. But what truly separates ordinary examples from higher value ones isn't the date, it's condition, strike quality, and in some cases, subtle minting variations. This is where many people get confused. Two pennies can look nearly identical to the casual eye, yet one might sell for a few cents, while the other attracts serious collector bids. That's because collectors evaluate coins on surface preservation, sharpness of detail, original luster, and whether the coin has ever been cleaned or altered. Let's talk about real-world value ranges, honestly and realistically. Most circulated 1957 no-mint mark pennies are worth only a few cents above face value. In average condition, they're commonly valued between 3 and 20 cents depending on demand and copper prices. That's normal, and there's nothing wrong with that. But here's a detail collectors quietly watch: uncirculated examples. Coins that never entered everyday use behave very differently. In lower uncirculated grades, these pennies can sell for a few dollars. But in higher certified grades, especially those with full original mint luster and clean surfaces, prices climb sharply. Some professionally graded 1957 Philadelphia cents in top condition have sold for hundreds of dollars. A small number of near-perfect examples have reached into the thousands, not because the date is rare, but because the condition is. And this is where quiet wealth discovery sometimes happens. Because many people inherit old collections, rolls, or jars of wheat pennies, without realizing that even one exceptional coin inside can outperform the rest by a wide margin. Now let's talk about varieties, because this is where things get interesting. The 1957 penny does not have famous dramatic errors like some earlier dates, but collectors do watch for subtle doubling, repunched design elements, and unusually strong strikes. Some examples show minor doubled lettering or design shifts that increase collector curiosity, especially when combined with high-grade preservation. This difference can completely change interest, but it's important to be clear. Not every blurry letter or worn detail is a valuable error. Many of those are simply the result of circulation damage or weak strikes. True varieties must be verified, usually by professional graders or experienced specialists. This is where many people get confused. They see online listings claiming enormous values for ordinary coins and assume every penny from that year is secretly rare. In reality, most of those listings are aspirational, not actual sales, and they don't reflect what serious buyers are paying. But verified high-grade examples, those tell a different story. Let's talk about what actually reduces value, because this matters more than most people realize. One of the biggest mistakes owners make is cleaning their coins. Even gentle wiping can permanently damage the surface, stripping away original luster and microscopic details that collectors prize. A cleaned coin almost always sells for significantly less than an untouched one, even if it looks brighter to the untrained eye. This is where many people get confused. Shiny does not mean valuable. Original does. Another mistake is improper storage. Loose coins rubbing together, exposure to moisture, or storage in PVC plastic flips can cause surface damage over time. And that damage quietly lowers collector interest, even if the coin looks fine at a glance. Now here's a detail collectors quietly watch: natural color. Copper coins develop toning over time, and collectors often prefer stable, original surfaces with even color rather than harsh brightness or unnatural shine. Coins with attractive natural toning sometimes bring stronger offers than ones that appear freshly polished. And this difference can completely change interest. Now let's talk about why the 1957 no mint mark penny still attracts attention today, even though millions were made. First, it's part of the final decade of wheat cents. That era ended in 1958, when the Lincoln Memorial design replaced the wheat reverse. Many collectors focus on the wheat cent series because it represents nearly 50 years of American coin history, and people enjoy completing date sets. Second, 1957 coins are widely found in old collections, rolls, and inherited jars, which makes them emotionally meaningful. These are the pennies people remember from childhood change drawers, piggy banks, and family coin albums. And third, the possibility of finding a high-grade survivor inside a group of ordinary coins creates real curiosity. This is where patient sellers sometimes discover unexpected income. Not because every coin becomes valuable, but because occasionally one stands out enough to attract strong collector demand. Now let's talk about grading, because this is the gatekeeper between ordinary coins and life-changing sale results for select examples. Professional grading services evaluate coins on a 70-point scale, with higher numbers representing better preservation. Most circulated 1957 pennies fall far below the levels where major premiums begin. But coins graded MS66, MS67 or higher, meaning pristine mint state, becomes scarce, and scarcity drives demand. This is where many people get confused. A coin can look perfect to the naked eye but still grade much lower under magnification due to tiny marks, surface disturbances, or weak strikes. That's why professional certification matters when higher values are involved. But here's a detail collectors quietly watch: strike sharpness. Some 1957 pennies show especially strong detail in Lincoln's hair, beard, and coat, as well as crisp wheat lines on the reverse. These sharper strikes are more desirable and often score higher in grading, even when surface preservation is similar. And that difference can completely change interest. Let's talk realistically about market behavior. Most collectors are not chasing this coin hoping for millions. Instead, they're looking for quality, originality, and scarcity within condition ranges. A beautiful uncirculated 1957 penny may sell for a few dollars. A top-grade certified example might sell for hundreds. And an exceptionally rare, nearly flawless survivor can achieve four-figure prices under the right circumstances. Those are real-world outcomes, not guarantees, but they represent the hidden financial potential that keeps collectors paying attention to even common-date coins. Now here's where many people get confused. They assume age alone determines value. But in coins, condition outweighs age almost every time. A worn 1957 penny is usually worth less than a pristine coin from decades later. Value follows preservation, not just time. And this is why patient evaluation matters. Now let's talk about what you should do if you think you might have one of these pennies. First, don't clean it, not even lightly. Second, examine it under good lighting and magnification. Look for sharp details, original luster, and surfaces free of scratches or stains. Check for doubling in the lettering and date. And confirm there's no mint mark under the date, which means Philadelphia. Third, compare it to graded examples online from reputable auction houses or professional grading services, not random listings. This is where many people get confused. They rely on asking prices instead of sold prices. Always look at what coins actually sold for. That's where the real market lives. And if your coin truly looks exceptional, professional grading may be worth considering, especially if its condition suggests high mint state preservation. This is how quiet wealth discovery sometimes begins, not through hype, but through careful observation, patience, and education. Now here's the part most people don't expect. The true value of the 1957 no mint mark penny isn't just financial. It's historical. It represents a moment in American life when coins were still made from solid copper, when wheat cents filled everyday change, and when small objects carried enormous cultural familiarity. But occasionally, just occasionally, one of those small objects surprises its owner in a financial way too. And this difference can completely change interest. So before you dismiss your old wheat pennies as ordinary, take another look. Because while most are modest in value, select examples have achieved life-changing sale results, not through chance, but through rarity within condition. And this is where many people get confused. They stop looking too soon. So here's your takeaway. Check your 1957 pennies carefully. Look for sharp strikes. Look for original surfaces. Look for anything that stands out from the rest. Because sometimes, quiet wealth discovery doesn't happen loudly. It happens in small moments of attention. And if you want to learn about another penny that collectors quietly watch, one that has surprised owners in similar ways, be sure to watch the next video recommended on your screen. Because in coin collecting, knowledge and patience matter more than speed. And sometimes, the smallest coins carry the biggest stories. Most people glance at a penny and see 1 cent. But some collectors have discovered that certain 1956 Lincoln pennies, especially ones with a small letter under the date, have sold for prices that feel completely out of proportion to what they look like. And today, we're focusing on the 1956 D Lincoln cent, a coin many people already own, but very few truly understand. Because this is where things get interesting. Some verified examples of this coin have reached unexpectedly high prices at auction, not because they're old, not because they're flashy, but because of very specific details most people never notice. And in a few rare cases, those details have led to life-changing sale results for select examples. So before you dismiss the penny jar sitting in your drawer, stay with me. This single cent might surprise you. Now let's rewind to 1956. The United States was in the middle of a booming post-war economy. Suburbs were expanding, highways were growing, and pocket change moved constantly through gas stations, diners, and corner stores. The Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for nearly half a century, and by the mid-1950s, billions were being struck every year. The Denver Mint, identified by the small d under the date, produced over 1 billion Lincoln cents in 1956 alone. That massive number is exactly why many people assume this coin can't be valuable. But this is where many people get confused. In coin collecting, rarity isn't always about how many were minted. It's about how many survive in high condition, how many have unusual features, and how many meet strict grading standards. That's where the 1956 D penny quietly stands out. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile faces right. On the reverse, you'll see two wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. This is part of the classic wheat cent series, which ran from 1909 to 1958, and collectors love this era because it includes some of the most famous and valuable pennies ever made. But the 1956 D belongs to the final stretch of that series, and coins from the end of a design run often get special attention. Now let's talk composition. The 1956 D Lincoln cent is made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving it that rich reddish tone when well preserved. Unlike modern zinc cents, these older copper coins feel heavier and more solid, and collectors still prefer them for that reason alone. But here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Most 1956 D pennies you'll find today are heavily circulated. The color is brown, the surfaces are dull, and Lincoln's jawline and hair are often worn smooth. Those coins usually trade for only a few cents over face value. But when this same coin survives in uncirculated condition, especially with strong mint luster and sharp details, the story changes completely. In professional grading, coins are scored on a scale from 1 to 70. Most circulated coins fall below 60. But when a 1956 D penny grades MS65, MS66, or higher, collector demand increases dramatically. And in top condition, with blazing red copper surfaces, some certified examples have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. This difference can completely change interest. A brown circulated example might be worth 2 cents. A red, gem quality example, same year, same mint, can bring hundreds. That gap is exactly where quiet wealth discovery happens for patient owners who know what to look for. Now let's talk about varieties and errors, because this is where things get even more interesting. Most 1956 D pennies look identical, but a small number show doubling in letters, unusual mint mark shapes, die cracks, or repunched elements, subtle differences created during the minting process. These aren't mistakes you can spot from across the room. You need magnification. But when collectors identify one of these varieties and confirm it through professional grading, value can rise dramatically. This is where many people get confused. They assume all doubling is valuable. But machine doubling, caused by vibration during striking, usually adds little value. True doubled die varieties, created during die preparation, are what collectors look for. And on certain Lincoln cents, these can lead to serious premiums. While the 1956 D doesn't have a famous doubled die on the level of 1955, minor varieties and striking anomalies still draw attention, especially when paired with high-grade condition. Now let's talk realistic value ranges. In circulated condition, most 1956D pennies sell between 2 and 10 cents, depending on color and eye appeal. Lightly worn examples with better surfaces may sell for slightly more. In uncirculated condition, values rise sharply. MS63 red examples can sell for $10 to $25. MS65 red examples often sell in the $40 to $100 range. MS66 red examples can climb into the hundreds. And in rare cases, when a coin grades at the very top of the scale, such as MS67 red, verified auction results have reached into the thousands. That's where collectors start using phrases like hidden financial potential and quiet wealth discovery. Not because every coin reaches those levels, but because a few do, and those few coins are the ones people remember. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: color designation. Copper coins are graded not just on wear, but on how much original red mint color remains. Coins are classified as brown, red-brown, or red. A full red coin commands dramatically higher prices, even if everything else about the coin is identical. Two pennies, same year, same mint mark, same condition, but one is brown and the other is red, can differ in value by 10 times or more. This difference can completely change interest. Now let's talk about mistakes owners make that quietly destroy value. First mistake, cleaning. Many people polish old pennies hoping to make them look better. But cleaning permanently damages surfaces, removes original luster, and usually cuts collector value by 50% or more, sometimes far more. Second mistake, improper storage. Copper reacts with air and moisture. Coins stored loose in jars, drawers, or damp environments often tone unevenly or corrode. Proper storage in coin holders or flips protects surface quality, and surface quality is everything in high-grade coins. Third mistake, assuming age equals value. This is where many people get confused. Just because a penny is old doesn't mean it's rare. Condition, color, strike quality, and certification matter far more than the date alone. Now here's where patient sellers sometimes experience something unexpected. Someone inherits a collection. Inside is a roll of old wheat cents. Most look ordinary, but one stands out, unusually bright, sharp, and clean. It gets submitted for professional grading, comes back MS66 red, and suddenly a coin that sat unnoticed for decades becomes a serious financial asset. Not common, but absolutely real. This is what collectors mean when they talk about hidden financial potential. Now let's talk about the mint mark itself. On the 1956D penny, the D appears just below the date on the obverse, to the right of Lincoln's shoulder. That single letter means the coin was struck in Denver. And Denver mint wheat cents from the 1950s are known for strong strikes and good surface quality compared to some other mints. That consistency is one reason high-grade examples exist at all, and why collectors still chase them today. Here's another detail collectors quietly watch: strike sharpness. Look at Lincoln's hair, cheekbone, and jawline. Look at the wheat stalk lines on the reverse. Sharp details mean the coin was struck with strong pressure and well-aligned dies, both desirable traits. Weak strikes reduce value, even in uncirculated coins. Now let's talk about certification, because this is where price differences become real. Raw coins, meaning uncertified, usually sell for far less than graded ones, even if they look nice. Once a coin is authenticated and graded by a major service like PCGS or NGC, buyers gain confidence. That confidence drives higher prices, especially at auction. This difference can completely change interest. An uncertified 1956D penny might sell for $20. The same coin, graded MS66 red, might sell for several hundred. Certification doesn't create value, it confirms it. Now let's talk about the psychology behind collector demand. Wheat cents are one of the most widely collected coins in America. Millions of people grew up finding them in pocket change. That nostalgia drives demand, and demand supports prices. But collectors don't just want any example. They want the best examples they can afford. That's why high-grade, original color coins always outperform average ones. And that's why the 1956 D penny, despite being common, remains relevant. This is where many people get confused. They think only famous key dates matter. But condition rarities matter just as much, sometimes more. Now let's talk about real-world outcomes. Most 1956 D pennies will never be worth more than a few cents. That's the truth, and honesty matters. But a small percentage, preserved perfectly for decades, quietly sit in collections, rolls, and drawers, holding far more value than anyone expects. That's where phrases like life-changing sale results for select examples come from. Not hype, not guarantees, just documented auction history, rare but real. Here's another detail collectors quietly watch: surface originality. Coins that haven't been cleaned, polished, or chemically treated show natural luster flow lines under light. That originality is one of the biggest drivers of premium prices. Once originality is lost, value almost always drops, even if the coin looks shiny. Now let's summarize what separates common examples from high-value ones. First, condition: uncirculated beats circulated every time. Second, color: red beats red-brown and red-brown beats brown. Third, strike quality: sharp details outperform weak ones. Fourth, originality: no cleaning, no damage. Fifth, certification: graded coins consistently outperform raw ones. Miss one of those and value drops fast. Get all of them right, and suddenly, a 1-cent coin becomes something collectors fight over. This difference can completely change interest. Now here's the part most people overlook: timing. Patient sellers often outperform fast sellers. Rushing to sell at the first offer usually leaves money on the table. Those who wait for strong market cycles, good auction exposure, and certified grading sometimes unlock results that surprise even experienced collectors. That's what quiet wealth discovery really looks like: not hype, not shortcuts, just knowledge, patience, and timing. Now let's bring this back to you. If you own old wheat pennies, especially ones from the 1950s, take a closer look. Check for the mint mark. Examine the surfaces. Look at the color. Look for sharp details. And most importantly, resist the urge to clean anything. Because this is where many people get confused. They assume better looking means better value. In coins, original always beats shiny. And sometimes, the coin that looks ordinary to one person is extraordinary to a collector. Now here's your takeaway. The 1956 D Lincoln penny isn't rare in numbers, but it can be rare in quality. And quality is where hidden financial potential lies. Most examples are worth pocket change. A few are worth real money. And an extremely small number have achieved life-changing sale results for select examples, simply because they survived in perfect condition while billions of others did not. That's what makes this coin fascinating. So tonight, when you see that jar of old pennies, don't rush past it. Take a second look. Use a magnifier. Check the mint mark. Check the surfaces. You might not find anything special, but if you do, you'll be glad you knew what to look for. And if you want to learn about another penny that has surprised collectors even more than the 1956 D, watch the next video on your screen. Because in coin collecting, knowledge and patience matter far more than speed. And sometimes, the smallest coins carry the biggest stories. If you've ever tossed a brown penny into a jar and forgotten about it, this video might make you look at those coins very differently. Because today, we're talking about the 1951 Lincoln penny with a D mint mark, a coin that most people assume is ordinary. Yet certain verified examples have quietly sold for prices that completely surprised their owners. Not guaranteed, not common, but real results that came from the right coin in the right condition at the right time. And before you decide what yours is worth, there's something important you need to know, because this is where many people get confused. The year 1951 sits in a fascinating moment in American history. The country was rebuilding after World War II. Industries were booming, and the U.S. Mint was producing massive numbers of coins to keep commerce moving. The Denver Mint alone struck over 625 million pennies that year, all marked with a small D beneath the date. On the surface, that makes the 1951 D Lincoln cent seem extremely common, and in many cases it is. But collectors don't just look at how many were made. They look at how many survived in strong condition, and more importantly, how many survived with unusual characteristics. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: condition changes everything. Two coins with the same date and mint mark can have completely different values, depending on how sharply the design was struck, how much wear is present, and whether the coin has been damaged or cleaned. This difference can completely change interest, especially for people who unknowingly cleaned their coins decades ago, not realizing they were permanently lowering their value. The 1951 D Lincoln cent was struck in bronze, made of about 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. That copper content alone makes older pennies appealing to collectors, especially as modern coins no longer use that metal composition. But collectors are especially interested in examples that remain in what's called mint state, meaning they were never circulated and still retain much of their original luster. These are the coins that begin entering the territory of quiet wealth discovery, not because everyone is rare, but because certain survivors are far scarcer than most people realize. This is where many people get confused. They hear that a coin isn't rare and assume it isn't valuable. But rarity and value are not always the same thing. A coin can be common in worn condition, yet surprisingly scarce in pristine condition. And for the 1951 D penny, that's exactly the case. Most examples entered circulation immediately and stayed there for decades. High-grade survivors, especially those with clean surfaces, full detail in Lincoln's hair and coat, and strong wheat stalk lines on the reverse, are much harder to find today. And that scarcity is what creates interest among advanced collectors. Because when a certified example grades high enough, the competition can drive prices into ranges that many people never expect from a single penny. Not typical, not average, but real market results from select examples that were preserved unusually well. Here's another detail collectors quietly watch: strike quality. Many 1951 D cents were struck with softer detail, especially on the reverse. Weak wheat lines or blurred lettering reduce desirability. But coins that show full separation in the wheat ears and crisp lettering across 1 cent often attract premium attention. This difference can completely change interest, even between two coins that look similar at first glance. Now let's talk realistically about value without hype, without exaggeration. Most circulated 1951 D pennies are worth only a few cents above face value, mainly due to copper content. In lightly circulated condition, they may bring 10 to 25 cents in typical markets. But as condition improves, the price begins to climb. Uncirculated examples can range from a few dollars to several dozen dollars, depending on eye appeal and surface quality. And then there are the top-tier certified coins, the ones that reach elite grades and show exceptional strike and color, that have produced life-changing sale results for select examples, sometimes crossing into the high four-figure and even higher territory when bidding competition is intense. Not common, not expected, but documented. This is where many people get confused. They assume that if their coin isn't shiny, it isn't valuable. But natural toning, original surfaces, and honest aging are often more desirable than a bright coin that's been cleaned. Cleaning a coin almost always lowers its value, sometimes by 50% or more, even if it looks better to the untrained eye. Collectors want originality, not polish. Another mistake owners make is assuming small marks don't matter. On older pennies, contact marks, scratches, or edge nicks can dramatically affect grade, especially on Lincoln's cheek, jawline, and coat. These areas are focal points for professional graders, and this difference can completely change interest. Now let's talk about varieties. Because while the 1951D penny doesn't have famous double die varieties like some other years, there are subtle repunched mint marks and die characteristics that collectors quietly watch. These are minor variations caused during the die-making process and often go unnoticed for decades. While they don't always bring huge premiums, in high-grade condition they can push interest higher, especially when paired with strong eye appeal and original surfaces. This is where patience matters. Many people search rolls or old collections expecting instant results, but experienced collectors know that quiet wealth discovery usually doesn't come from speed. It comes from careful inspection, understanding grading standards, and recognizing when a coin is better than average. Some of the strongest sale results didn't come from lucky finds in circulation. They came from coins that sat undisturbed in albums, drawers, and inherited collections for decades before finally being examined properly. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: color designation. Copper coins are classified as red, red-brown, or brown, depending on how much original mint color remains. Fully red coins from 1951D are especially rare because copper naturally darkens over time. Coins that retain bright original red surfaces can command dramatically higher premiums. This difference can completely change interest, even if everything else about the coin is identical. And this is where many people get confused. They assume darker coins are worse. But for many collectors, rich chocolate brown surfaces with clean texture and smooth fields are far more desirable than artificially bright coins that were cleaned or polished. It's originality that matters, not brightness. Now let's talk about how unexpected income sometimes happens with coins like this. Not because people get lucky overnight, but because someone finally takes the time to evaluate what they already own. A coin that sat in a jar for 40 years might be common, or it might be a high-grade survivor that escaped circulation entirely. Without proper inspection, both coins look the same to most people. And that's where hidden financial potential lies, in the difference between average and exceptional. Another mistake people make is selling too quickly. They walk into a shop, take the first offer, and move on. While many dealers are honest and fair, the highest prices usually come from competitive bidding environments, auctions, certified listings, and collector markets, where multiple buyers are competing for quality examples. Patience often turns ordinary expectations into surprising outcomes. This is where many people get confused. They assume a single opinion determines value, but coin markets are fluid. Demand shifts, registry collectors compete, and suddenly, coins that once sold for modest amounts begin attracting stronger interest, especially in top grades with strong eye appeal. Now let's bring this back to the 1951D penny in your possession. If you have one, here's what matters most. Is it uncirculated? Does it show strong detail on Lincoln's face and coat? Are the wheat stalks on the reverse crisp and separated? Is the surface original and free from cleaning? And does it retain strong copper color? These factors matter far more than the date alone. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: luster. That soft glow that moves across the surface when the coin tilts under light is one of the most important signs of originality. Once luster is gone, it rarely returns, and this difference can completely change interest, especially when two coins look similar at first glance. Most 1951D pennies will not change anyone's life. That's reality. But some have already produced life-changing sale results for select examples, and that's why collectors continue studying this date. Not because everyone wins, but because a few did, and because knowledge and patience continue to uncover coins that others overlooked. This is where quiet wealth discovery lives, not in hype, not in shortcuts, but in understanding the small details that separate average coins from exceptional ones. Before you put your pennies back in the jar, take a closer look. Use good lighting. Avoid cleaning. Compare your coin to high-grade examples online. And if something looks unusually sharp or pristine, consider professional evaluation before selling. Sometimes the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is just one careful decision. And if you want to continue learning about pennies that have surprised collectors with their hidden financial potential, watch the next video on your screen, because another Lincoln sent from a nearby year has produced some of the most unexpected results in the hobby. Your coins already have a story. The only question is whether you've looked closely enough to read it.